And then I could, I could tell when I died, and it was in, and all of my muscles in my body, even though they felt tense and felt tight, they all went lax. They all went lax. And then I couldn't move my eyeballs, and everything went fuzzy in my sight. Everything went completely fuzzy. And the light got a whole lot brighter because the muscles in my eyeballs completely relaxed and went dilated. So the light in my room got really bright. And I couldn't move my eyelids. I could not move my eyelids at all whatsoever. I just couldn't. Sorry if I'm yelling into the microphone. I could not move my eyelids. And that was the last fight I had. Just trying to move my eyelids. There was no more even moving my eyes. I was like, I need to protect my eyes from drying out. I need to close down my eyes at least just a little bit, because my eyelids had kind of like gone wide open because there was no muscle anymore. At least that's what it seemed like. But yeah, and I couldn't move my eyelids. It was the biggest, hardest fight in my life just to try and move my eyelids. And it occurred to me that, oh my God, I'm a rag doll right now. Someone could come along and do whatever the heck they want to with me and to me, and I would have no recourse. No recourse at all whatsoever. I wouldn't be able to do a single solitary thing. That's it. That's it. And that's what happened to me. I laid there in my body, unable to move. And the interesting thing, and this is the weird thing, I was like, okay, so I'm not going to heaven, I'm not going to hell, nothing's happening. And so I was in so much horrific pain that I decided to get up out of my body. And every time I went to sit up and get up out of my body, the weird thing is that I would start sitting up and I would get a couple of, I don't know what you want to call it. I get like a couple of inches up out of my body, and then my body would kind of start, it's like I was chained to my body, and my body would start moving with me. I swear. My body would start sitting up too, but it wasn't working right and it didn't move right. And so it wasn't really sitting up, and it was trying to sit up, but it wasn't sitting up. And it was, I was trying to get up and it wasn't working. And so, and what ended up happening eventually, and this, I'm trying to remember, because thankfully my memory problems have stopped me from remembering the horrific trauma and the horrific details of all of this, which is the only reason why I'm even able to talk about this at all whatsoever in any way, shape, or form, which, I'm grateful for. And I know that I talked about this on another channel. I'm not going to give the name of it. But yeah, I talked about this on another channel that I had, which is defunct now. But, and I was far closer to it then. And thankfully, I have been able to be rid of the trauma, but it's like the trauma is still rolling around back there. And despite the upset that I'm in right now, and I still can't totally remember it. But I do know, and this is the ridiculous part, I do know that I was like, okay, it's really clear that Jesus doesn't exist, that hell doesn't exist. I've been completely lied to. And this is the thing that I learned, that when we die, and this is what no one wants you to know. And this is the other important thing that I want to impart to everyone. When we die, we are our brains, and we are our spinal columns. And what ends up happening is that no matter what age you die and no matter what you die from, it can be from doffing yourself, it can be from, a plane crash, it can be from disease, it can be from old age, it can be from, being shot. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you die from or when you die. You are your brain and spinal column, and you stay in your brain and spinal column until your brain and spinal column rot away or are cremated away, burnt away, until your brain and spinal column no longer exists at all. You will continue to exist and continue to experiencing your body decomposing and going into rigor and going into all the horrific things that are involved with, death and dying, autopsy, all of it. You'll experience it. You will experience it until your brain is entirely, either decomposed, whether it's decomposed from decomposition, decomposed from like Breaking Bad, being eaten away by chemicals because you've been stuffed into a barrel full of chemicals, or decomposed from cremation, and the same thing with your spinal column. And, that's just the way it is. That's just the way it is. And that is what I learned dying. And now this is going to be nutty, but I don't know what else. I mean, this is literally the truth. So, and since I'm ruled by Neptune, but despite being ruled by Neptune, you all are going to believe me. You all believe me. So I was laying there. I was a rag doll. I couldn't move. I ended up realizing this, that there's no such thing as heaven or hell. Clearly, we are our spinal columns and brains. All of this stuff has been complete and total lies foisted upon us because death is the one thing that no one can talk about. Because death is the one thing that none of us, we can't die for 2 weeks and come back and go, all right, for my own personal self, I know what death is now. No one can tell me about death. Death is the one thing that you can talk about and no one can prove you wrong. There are no scientific tests to prove you wrong. There are no laws to prove you wrong. You can sit there and pass laws all you want, but that doesn't mean that those laws are correct. Just as they're passing laws right now against, people who are homeless, sleeping in public places, sleeping in public parks, sleeping under bridges. They can pass those laws all they want, but that doesn't make those laws correct. That doesn't make those laws right. That doesn't make those laws morally upright. And that doesn't stop homeless people from sleeping under bridges and in parks because they have nowhere else to go. So the same difference with, death. You can pass all the laws you want around death, but that isn't going to stop death itself, And they're trying, they've passed laws against, all kinds of laws against death. And that hasn't stopped people from, committing horrific things, homicide, and these school things and doffing themselves. That hasn't stopped anything. That hasn't stopped anyone from, doing death to others, to themselves, and, just flat out dying, they've even, and that includes drugs and everything else, It's like don't take your car and drive off the bridge, and there will still be people who, for whatever reason, end up driving off bridges, So you can pass all the laws you want, but it doesn't make any difference. So back to my point. Death is the only thing that no one can prove or disprove in any way, shape, or form. Period. And that is why it has been, anything that doesn't have a voice is used by the system. Kids are used by the system because they're not allowed a voice. Those who are handicapped, mentally, physically, are usually, maligned and used by the system because they're not allowed a voice. Same with foreigners who don't speak the same language. They're maligned by the system and used by the system because they don't speak the same language. They technically don't have a voice. Anyone who doesn't have any legal rights, such as, people who are considered criminals, such as the homeless, and people who are considered criminals, such as druggies, they don't have a voice because via the law, they're not allowed a voice, so they're maligned and people talk over them, for them, about them, but they're not allowed to speak for themselves. And if they do speak for themselves, it's the obvious. They're spoken against, they're shouted down, and they're spoken, anything that they say is maligned and spoken against. So there you go. So anything that isn't allowed to have a voice, or that automatically doesn't have a voice because, it's an inanimate object, or it's death itself. Yeah. People can say whatever the heck they want to about it, against it, for it, what have you, with it, and say whatever they want to say and do whatever they want to do without being proven wrong. And that is why death has been so used and abused by all the religions of the world, and by a lot of the governments, and definitely by the businesses of the world. Definitely by them. So there you go. So what ended up happening, how I came back, to this day I do not know. But I will say these two things, and I don't know what to make of them. But I will record this because this is more for myself and my own jogging my memory than anything else. One of the things that happened to me while I was dead is that, and thankfully this is far enough in the video that I think I can say this. Literally, the ghost of Robin Williams came to me and I got to see all his previous lives. He filled me up with his unconditional love and his unconditional happiness, and he was more a Christian than even the non-existent Christ was. I decided that if I ever met Christ himself, I definitely will annihilate him. I will soul death him if I ever meet him, and all of his followers and all of his angels, because he's pure evil. I see Satanism as, it's no different. It's literally Christianity. It's just saying, oh, I'm going with the bad guy. So I don't like Satanism either. It's literally the flip side of the coin of Christianity, and I don't want to have anything to do with Christianity like that. The Robin Williams ghost definitely made me happy, filled me full of love. I couldn't understand the happiness. I've never felt or tasted happiness like that before in my life. I liked it. I enjoyed it. The love I understood. I liked it. It was wonderful. I've had that before, but never in this amount and never in this extreme wowness. It was fantastic. He made me even hot. He made my body temperature even higher than it was before, which I didn't like. He did dry my body out worse than before, which I didn't like. He introduced me to Abraham Hicks, which I like Abraham Hicks, but I don't like their philosophy. And the only other thing, and this the other part, that I can't explain. I consider all this hallucinations from whatever drugs the quacks gave me to literally kill me, like had happened to my cousin, who was a first responder for 9/11. He got whatever lung diseases and ailments that those 9/11 responders got, and he was in the hospital on his last legs suffering away, and his family members were around him. His parents decided to leave. This was in Colorado. His parents decided to leave because they needed, his mom needed a shower, needed to eat, and the dad was like, come on, at least let me take care of you. Let me make you dinner. And so finally got her to leave. And while his parents were driving home, they saw him in the back seat. And turns out that my cousins, his brother and sister, were in the hospital room, and nurses came in, shoved them aside, were very cruel and very evil to them. And they gave my cousin a hot dose, which is what they do. This also happened to my grandfather on my mother's side. His name was Grandpa Lefto. they gave my grandpa Lefto a hot dose, whatever you want to call it. You know, it's a drug overdose. They gave him, a dangerous drug, and they tried to OD him. My grandpa Lefto did not die. My cousin in Colorado, who was the 9/11 responder, he did die. Whatever they gave my cousin from Colorado, he passed away. He passed away that minute. So whatever hot dose those damn little quackies gave my cousin, it worked on him. My grandpa Lefto, on my mom's side, it did not work on him. And he had many weeks of recovery, and it was very horrific. So you really do want to know your gene pool before you attempt taking your own life. I just want to say that, because when medical staff cannot kill you, when they are purposely trying to, that is a problem, because they know what they're doing. It's like putting down a cat, and if they can't put you down, you have some very serious and horrific consequences. And I still feel very sorry for my grandpa Lefto to this day for that, because I think technically it would have been kinder if he had been able to leave, but because of his genetic makeup, he wasn't able to, which is what is so sad and horrific. So there you go. But back to me and what I went through. So I found out that because I'm Asperger's, my body is not made to hallucinate. And yet I kind of hallucinated anyway. I don't know what else to call it, because, I met the ghost of a dead celebrity, and he actually came to me, and he stayed with me for many, many years, at least 4 years. It was really wonderful. Yeah, he visits every so often now. And thankfully, as I've been healing here, he's faded away. And so have all these other creepy things. And the other thing, before I passed out completely, because I call it falling asleep. I did actually fall asleep during this, September 1st, 2014 near-death experience. I fell asleep. And before I fell asleep, during all these hallucinations, and it's like, how did you fall asleep? You can't, because when you are dehydrated, sleep goes out the window. You can't sleep any longer. So that also does not help your body. It doesn't help your brain. You're already poisoned to death, but it makes it worse when it comes to hallucinations. And I remember I was like, there's no such thing as God. There's no such thing as hell. No demons, no angels, no heaven. So I yelled out to what I believed in, the only other thing I believed in at the time, and that was aliens. And I said, please give me new kidneys. I need them. And and I managed to argue them into giving me new kidneys. Thankfully, it worked. And I didn't realize that at the time, but what worked was telling them that you can give me new kidneys without being found out. Now, the reason that worked is because there's no such thing as aliens. They're just underground reptiles, and they're very evil, and they're doing evil things. But their main thing is that they don't want to be found out. They don't want to be, whether they do something good or do something bad, they don't want to be found out. And it's true. No one ever found them out. No one ever found them out. And it's not on any medical chart anywhere, because I didn't have any money to go to any doctors, and I'm never going to go to any doctor ever again. I would much rather go to holistic doctors, which, the scientific field writes off, and I'm more than fine with that, because me and science are enemies now after everything that I learned during this near-death experience. And I learned it from experience, not because I went to heaven, not because I had, and what ended up happening after I asked these aliens to help me out, I definitely felt them, they said, okay. And next thing I know, I passed out. Everything went black. And then I woke up again. And it was the same night. It was not only the same day, it was the same day and date. It was the same night. And I was in the exact same place. There was no difference. And as insane as this sounds, eventually that night, I ended up getting up and having dinner with my family around 10:30, 11:30 p.m. That is when we were having dinner those nights, because my brother would come home at that time and we would hold dinner off. We would make dinner late and hold eating it until he got home. And so at 10:30, 11:30 at night, as sick as I was, I went and I ate spaghetti with my family because it was expected of me. And Mom, thankfully, she actually gave a shit. Instead of being angry at me and saying, it's all in your head, get up, you deadbeat, you lout, why don't you get up off your deadbeat ass? She was actually worried, and she came into my room and she said, dinner's ready, please come eat, kind of sort of a thing. I don't know how to describe it. And I did my best to literally drag my corpse. And for the longest time, for about 2 years, I would move and then my body would move. Like my spirit would move and it'd be half out of my body. And then my body would move. And my body just felt like a ton of lead. It was the heaviest thing in the world. It was extremely beyond salty. I don't know how else to describe it. It was beyond salty. It was extremely burning hot. And I couldn't get it to move. I could not. It was so heavy. It was the heaviest thing I have ever experienced before, ever. It is literally like trying to take a car and push it uphill all by yourself. And I don't mean today's plastic cars, not these tiny little bicycles that we have nowadays. I mean an old 1970s, like massive, all metal, all chrome boat. Like the kind of crap that you see on, I don't know, like Perry Mason, one of those old kind of cars, late 60s, early 70s, where it only has 2 doors and the doors are the length of the vehicle. And those vehicle doors will literally cut your legs off if you slam it. And I'm not exaggerating, because that actually happened to a doctor friend of my mom's that she worked for when they lived, up north before I was born. Because she worked for the University of Minnesota in the medical wing, but I'm not even gonna. But yeah. There was a doctor who had a really nice big old Cadillac or whatever it was, and both his legs were broken because that big old 1970s door, slammed on. He tried to push the door open and he got it open, but then the door came, swinging back, and it landed on his legs and broke both his legs, almost clean. So. I mean, the break was clean. The bone was a clean break, completely all the way through. This was not a fracture, but it almost took his legs off completely, almost decapitation of the legs. So that was interesting. So yeah, that was, it's like trying to push one of those cars uphill by yourself when you don't even weigh hardly 100 pounds, because I was so dehydrated. That's what it was like trying to drag my body around. My body wouldn't move. It couldn't move. I was in horrific pain, and I was rightfully angry. And I didn't want to be alive at all, rightfully so. And to this day, I don't know why or how I didn't die. I wish I would have. I am exceedingly grateful now that I am as healthy as I am. Because I found out the other extremely important thing that I need to impart in this is that it doesn't matter. The only thing that matters, I found out, is being able to die in a setting where people love you. The atmosphere in the room is of pure love and people loving you emotionally, spiritually, consciously, however you want to put it, soully, wisely, spirit-wise. And being able to die in a very exceedingly comfortable bed and pillow and position. That is what matters. That is the only thing that matters at all whatsoever. Nothing else matters. Nothing else matters. When I was 27, I needed someone to hold my hand when I died. But when I was 34 at this time. When I was 34, I didn't need someone to hold my hand anymore. I mean, I wanted that very badly, and I was pure terror itself when I was dying when I was 34, but it didn't matter anymore, you know, so much. So yeah, so I found out that the only thing that matters in life is dying in comfort, dying in a place where everyone is treating you well, and then physically feeling healthy. Even if you're not healthy, at least physically feeling healthy. That is what matters. That is the only thing that matters. And the only other thing that matters other than that, if you can pull it off, and I had to learn this the hard way, is everyone thinks that you want to be out of your mind when you die. Well, I was out of my mind when I died, and that is one of the worst tortures you can experience. You don't want to be in withdrawal when you die, so you don't want to be addicted to any drugs or you know, even cigarettes or alcohol. You do not want to be in withdrawal when you die. And you don't want to I just forgot. Thankfully, I just remembered too. You don't want to be forgetting when you die. You want to have... You don't want to be forgetting when you die. You want to die in full consciousness, in full memory, and not in withdrawal. So there you go. I'm glad that I put this up here. I'm glad that I am having it, you know, somewhere at all. If I can, I'll upload this to my Ghosty Geek channel too. But yeah. I'm glad I did this. Sorry about all the little background noises. I've been clicking my water bottle. I have little rubber bands on my water bottle. And I have a spoon in here. I was going to have some applesauce, but now I'm not going to. You know, I've learned to stop listening to doctors. When I came back to life, that was the first thing I realized. Stop listening to doctors, because it turns out I ended up finding out later on that I had kidney cancer. That's what I actually passed away from. And I got it from taking Zantac and Propulsid, which is what I was given when I was 12 years old, because my whole stomach was rotted out. Because I had eaten lunch meat for a good 3-4 years straight, because that's all I wanted to eat. And that was the only thing that was edible in my house. My mom, being a hoarder, she would hoard food, pets, you name it, and we weren't allowed to touch it, and the food would go moldy, you know, and I would fight really hard to be able to eat. And the only time I managed to eat anything was when it had already gone moldy. And so lunch meat was the only thing I was allowed to eat that wasn't moldy. And so I lived off that, and it ended up rotting out my stomach. So don't eat lunch meat. I mean, there's so many lessons in this video, so many lessons in this voiceover. So, and everyone is going to listen to this all the way to the end. Positive thinking. And I did find out that positive thinking does make you feel better. It does make your life better. Some people have a backlash effect, like I seem to now. I shouldn't have a backlash effect. Blah, blah, blah. But yeah. Positive thinking does make you feel better. And so I'm positive thinking that everyone is going to watch this, be amazed, and, you know, ask any questions that you want to. But if you don't believe it, then I'm going to block you. I don't care. I don't have time for that. And my memory problems are such that I'm grateful that I recorded this and I put this out there. I think I'll put more out there, because I need to. I need to record my family and my life and what I've been through. So that's it for now. And yeah, I'm just suddenly going to cut this off. My brains are so mush, and I am so forgetful that I can't remember the other stuff I was going to say. But I'm glad that I managed to hit on all of the main and important and most important points that I wanted to say, and that I would have wanted to say if my brains were able to remember properly. So at least I'm able to remember that much. And I'm glad. So I wish I could have filled in all the little details in between these main points. I apologize, and I'm sorry to myself that I haven't been able to. I think I might expand on some of the topics in this video later on. But for right now, since this is at an hour, I'm going to cut it off. Hopefully I can upload this to TikTok also. And that's what I'm talking about, my Ghosty Geek channel. I have a Ghosty Geek channel over on TikTok, so there you go. Bye for now.